What we're going to talk about today is pressure passing, specifically from a body lock into a half guard. In a Nogi context, I think that this is it's one of the best ways to pass a guard, okay? For the obvious reason that in Nogi, you have less ability to statically force a connection between yourself and the other person, right? In the gi, right, you can grab the pants, you can grab the collar. It's way easier to like just grip somebody and hold on to them. I mean, it's a pretty dramatic difference between something like posing on his leg and making a collar tie. These are much weaker forms of connection that we can make to a person. So if you think of what you're doing when you grab the pants here, right, just as an example, you're basically forming closed wedges, right? Like closed wedges that you can statically hold, right? Do you guys know what the concept of closed wedges, right? If my hands are open like this, these could be wedges, they could be inhibiting movement, but they're not closed wedges, right? Generally speaking, we want to have, if we can, we want to have closed wedges. Like these would be closed wedges. It's like a closed loop, right? There's no open space or something to escape. You can still use open wedges to control things. You're going to do that a lot of the times as well. But if we have the ability to make closed wedges, that's always going to be our preference. I shouldn't say always, but it's frequently going to be our preference, okay? When you're making a grip on the gi, think about it. I'm like making a closed wedge, right? I'm closing the sort of the loop of the space of the area that I'm controlling, right? Whereas in Nogi, I'm not really doing that. He could like pull my wrist. It's a lot easier for him to do that. Whereas if I'm gripping and he's got a grip break, which is a much more difficult task than just pulling my wrist, okay? So one thing we can do is we can use our arms to make closed wedges around his body, and that's gonna help us a lot in Nogi to force a static connection that we otherwise wouldn't really be able to get with other forms of guard passing. Okay, so we're gonna be in front of our training partner, and we're just gonna go right into a body lock, and we're gonna go into my favorite body lock, which is we're gonna take a body lock over one arm, okay? At first, this seems like not as strong as having around his hips. Okay, but the reality is when you trap an arm, you're really limiting his defensive options a lot, okay? So we'll talk a little bit about that now. If I go around the hips like this, one thing that he can do really effectively that makes things really difficult is he can put his hands to the floor. Put your hands to the floor. Yeah, you'll be shocked at how like effective this can be at making it difficult for you to flatten him out, which is what one of our initial goals is gonna be, right? When I get a body lock, I wanna put him on his back, okay? If you grab around here, I'm not saying it can't work. Of course it can, guys, right? But he has this ability to put his hands to the floor. Yeah, and you'll be shocked at how, man, this can be really hard actually to get through, okay? So one easy way around that is I'm just gonna make a body lock around one arm and his body, okay? Just keep it inside here. Where I position my head is also very key. I see a lot of people go wrong with this. We don't want to go too high. We also don't want to go too low. Our goal ultimately is going to be to push him down to the shoulder of the trapped arm. Okay? So we want our head positioned in such a way that it allows us to easily do that. The way I tell people to think about it is put your face, your cheek on his pec muscle looking at his shoulder. So I'm going to be right here. My cheek is in his pec muscle, and I'm basically looking right at his shoulder, okay? I'm actually closing my right eye so that I don't kind of like jam my eye in his body, okay? We don't want to be here, because here, if I trap the arm, my forehead creates a lot of space. You can pummel that arm out really easily. Yeah, and he just gets it right out, right? When you get good at this type of body lock pass, what people are going to realize is people are going to give you this arm at first, because it seems like I want to have the arm out, right? But people are going to figure out really fast that it's actually not to their advantage to have the arm to the inside, okay? So they're going to start fighting to get the arm out as much as possible, okay? So we want to make it as tight as possible. Now here, he doesn't have as much space, okay? If you're making a 10-finger grip, that's what I'm doing here. Draw your elbows back to make it tighter. You can make 10-finger. You can make palm to palm. If you got long enough arms, you can go wrist to wrist. Just depends on your arm length. That's not the priority of what I'm going to show today. I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world. Also, where you connect your hands, it matters. But where you ultimately connect your hands at the beginning, stay right there. Where you make your hands at the beginning of a body lock is not the biggest deal. Okay? The first priority you have is just connecting your hands. You can adjust it as you go. Okay? So don't worry about initially where you connect your hands. Okay? Just go and connect your hands, and then you can adjust. And then you can get, do you guys know like what a long arm and short arm is in a body lock? You can adjust to a long arm and short arm, even if you don't initially get it, all right? So we start off here, I go towards him. I'm gonna connect my hands, put my face in the right spot. Now, the next thing I'm gonna do is I never drive into him before I pull his hips into his heels. Because if there's a lot of space between his heels and his hips, it's easy for him to extend me with his legs, extend me with your legs. Yeah, and now he can start off balancing me, and this can become a big problem for me, okay? So the first thing I want to do is when I make this connection, I pull his hips into his heels. So I stuff everything in, okay? Now from here, what I'm going to look to do is, he can't stop me from driving this shoulder down, okay, because he doesn't have a hand to post. At the same time that I drive down with my forehead going into his shoulder, I'm going to sprawl on the opposite side and step up with my left leg. What this does is, so there's two things. It's very difficult for him to maintain his left butterfly hook, okay? Yeah, he'll probably lack up a half guard, and that's what we're going to look at eventually, but the butterfly hook is going to be hard for him to maintain. And even if he does maintain it, it's not going to be a useful butterfly hook. Okay, the second thing it does, stay right here, don't move at all, stay right here. Look at where his knee is, guys. It's facing like out towards the wall. The higher the knee is, the more difficult this is gonna be to get to a half guard. Okay, so a really common mistake I see is like people don't get this knee turned down and they try to like do this like high legging acrobatic motion over the leg, kind of like they'll be here, they try to do something like this. And I guess that could work, but it's also really hard. And when I raise my hip up here, if he extends his leg, yeah, there's like big off balances there. That's not great. So what we want to do is, we want to, so if we come up here, we want to turn him down kind of like this. See how this gets low? Now when I go over it, right, it's going to be really easy for me, and he doesn't have off balancing powers to the same degree, okay? So come back up. So I go in. Don't worry about how you're getting the body lock. That's not the focus of today. I just want to work with when we get it. So I catch it, I pull him in, okay, my head's in the right spot. I'm going to sprawl on my right hip, drive him down towards the shoulder of the trapped arm, and step my other leg up. Okay, this sprawl, guys, this is pretty important. Don't take the leg straight back. Don't go on your side, go in the middle. Okay, so I'm like turning my hips and sprawling like that. If it goes straight back, you're not doing much to defeat the hook. The way you want to think about it is, I'm closing my hip, okay, but not all the way, because then I'm obviously compromising my base completely. Okay, so one more time. I go in, head's in the right position. I'm trapping the arm. Go over the crook of the bicep. That's the best spot to trap the arm. Catch your hands, okay? Pull his hips into his heels. Now I'm gonna sprawl on my right side, and I step on my left leg. And see how his knee is low, guys? This is what we're looking for. This is very good now, okay? And from here, there's a bunch of different options depending on what he does, but definitely things are in our favor from this point, okay? Make sense, guys? Any questions before we get started? If not, let's give it a try. 1, 2, 3. Talk about a few things that I just wanna make sure everybody understands. So go flat on your back for me. So I'm just gonna kind of like explain like what I should be doing with the hip that I'm sprawling. So just pretend, I'm doing this without a Bodylock so you guys can see more clearly. You'd obviously really need a Bodylock for this to work. So, but just pretend that I have a Bodylock, okay? So, let's switch to this side actually. So, what I don't want to do with my sprawling legs, in this case it's gonna be my right leg, is just this. Keep a butterfly hook. I don't want to just take it back. You see, that doesn't do anything to his hook, right? Like, I can do this as hard as I want, this doesn't achieve anything. But if I sprawl like this, see how that stuffs his butterfly hook? It's really difficult for him to hold like a butterfly hook that has any like meaningful ability to push and elevate me, okay? Because I'm closing off my hip. Here my hip is very open, so keep the butterfly hook. Here my hip is very open. Okay, here he can keep a butterfly hook and I can't really do anything to stop that. So what I want to do is, just keep the hook. What I want to do is I want to close my hip. Here, it's very difficult for him to maintain a butterfly hook that can really do anything, to be honest, okay? And if he does keep it here, I don't mind. I can still make my next step, like happily, and then he's gonna regret doing that. Yeah, it's gonna make it easier to pass his guard. Okay, so now let's move into the actual, like the actual guard passes, okay? What we're gonna do here is we're gonna assume that he's gonna make a good choice and he's gonna go to a half guard, okay? that's probably what people are gonna do most of the time, and I think it's what he should do, okay? So if you're setting up this thing, yeah, so we're gonna be here, we come in, I get my body lock. Remember guys, we pull him in first, bring his hips to his heels, then I sprawl, like so, we beat the hook. We beat the hook, and I'll come back up one step. Guys, we wanna try to get, if we can, a long arm, short arm. From the outset, it's okay if your hands are in the center of the back. It's not really that important, but just pull your arm across if you can. You can't always get it, but it would be helpful if you can. Anyway, so once we're here, what I'm gonna try to do is, so if he has a half guard, let's say he locks up a half guard. That's, I think, a reasonable thing for him to do at this point. What he's gonna wanna do, as much as possible, is not let me get my left thigh to the front of his knee. If I can get there, okay, yeah, it's gonna be bad for him. So right now, it's not even really actually a true half guard. It's kind of like a quasi half guard. The more I can get over this thigh, the more I can force like a true half guard, okay? So he's gonna be retracting his knee towards his shoulder, yeah, and not trying to let me get into that space. What I'm gonna do with my right leg, so my right leg is on the inside of his ankle. So if you guys see my right leg, okay, it's the leg on bottom. Because it's inside his ankle, okay, I can extend it back, and that's gonna push his ankle back. If his ankle gets pushed back, his knee gets pushed back, okay? So this is a really useful concept when it comes to body lock passing. When we get inside ankle exposure and we can extend it back, we can extend the knee back, and that's really gonna help us to ultimately get over his knee, which is really helpful to guard pass here, okay? So from here, we can step over because I'm pushing his knee back by pushing his ankle back, or if I have to, and I'm only gonna do this if I have to because it is risky, I can slide my knee up, okay? If I slide my knee up, I have more of a, so you see here, my right leg's all the way back. If I bring it up, I can lean on that, and it's easier to step over. But the obvious risk here, guys, is kind of going on my side here. Yeah, it can be risky, okay? So only do that, like, I would try to just step over here first, okay? If you can't, we slide the knee up, and just do this quickly. Don't like, never sit here for long periods of time. This is really, really risky, okay? So I'm gonna go, if I have to, I go here, I step over. When I step over, try to make it a small movement where my knee comes up to my own shoulder and the heel comes back. Now, once I've got this position, the whole goal here is to block off the space between the top of his thigh and his shoulder, okay? So what I'm gonna do then is, with the body lock still, I'm gonna move my head over the other cheek, the other pec muscle, my cheek over the other pec muscle, and then I'm gonna walk my legs back and turn my knees to face towards his hips. So it's a similar concept as before. Here my hip is really open, right? I'm trying to close off this space. So I wanna close this hip. Okay, that's the whole goal of what I'm doing now with how I'm walking my legs and such, right? So I turn my head over the other cheek. Sorry, I turn my cheek over the other pec. A lot of traveling lately, guys. Right, so I turn my cheek over the other pec. Okay, what that's gonna do, by the way, guys, it's gonna hold down this shoulder. Okay, I don't want him coming up on his side either. That's bad. Okay, so I turn my face over the other pec muscle, and now I close this hip off. Okay, I walk my legs into his, and I turn my knees to face into his hips. It's very important that I don't just stand or rest square here. Here he can put his feet together, put his knees together, turn them towards the wall, and he can do what we call a John Wayne sweep. Yeah, that's not good. So to beat that, we turn our knees towards his hips. I'm on the base of my foot, not like this. There's no support here. I'm here, and my right foot is off the floor. Okay, guys. Now when he goes to John Wayne sweep me, it's just not there. Okay. When he goes to drive into me, I can push off my toes and push back into him. So that doesn't work either. Okay. And this is a very stable position from which to begin looking to pass the half guard. Okay. Now from here, I'm going to make a choice dependent upon one of two things, which you will see in a second. Now I'm going to center up my spine with his, and I extend my leg back. This is the same concept as before. We have inside ankle exposure. and we're looking to push his ankle down, which is gonna push his knee down. Okay, at the same time, after I've done this, I bring my left knee up, pummel my feet, my foot and other inside. So now we have a sort of a two-pronged approach we're gonna take. Keep your legs locked. I'm gonna either turn my knee towards the wall and step my foot up to his hip. Okay? If I can do that, I'm gonna open up his legs. If that's what I can do, I bring my heel back. Both my heels are outside his hips. Windshield leg on my right leg over my left, and then both come out. Okay? That is one way to pass from here. That's known as the ankle first method of escaping the half guard. So we're opening up the half guard, and the ankle is coming out first. Okay? That's if I can open up his legs. Okay? Now, in my experience, that's really, really hard against people that are a lot bigger than you. Like if they're really big and they're really strong, legs are really, really strong, that one's gonna be tough, okay? But the advantage of that one, because you're gonna see in contrast with the next one we're gonna look at, is more of your body is in contact with the floor. So as a result, it's inherently more stable. So that's the one I'm gonna try to go for first because it's more stable. It's harder to get swept, okay? But if the guy's like really, really strong, it's gonna be hard. If we can't do the first one, I'm always gonna try the first one first because it's more stable. If I can't do that, I'm gonna do the second one, the one we're gonna look at now. So come here again. So, I'll let you in. Yeah, no worries. We go in, pull the hips in, we sprawl. He locks up a half guard. Maybe I have to slide my knee up. I step over. I turn my waist back like so. And my head is over the other cheek, the far side. I keep saying that. The far side back. All right, now I line my spine up with his and I extend my right leg back. If you're really flexible, maybe you don't need to extend that right leg. But guys, I'm pretty flexible and I still need to do it. So I think most of you are gonna have to do this. See how my right leg is fully extended? That pushes his ankle down, which pushes his knee down, which gives me access to this pony. Now he's really strong and I cannot open up these legs. I'm like, damn man, he's really, really strong. I'm gonna go on the base of my foot here like this, and I'm gonna just bring my knee up the floor and walk my knee out. We can go here to like almost like a quasi mount, and then pummel to a knee on belly, and you've got your guard pass. Okay? So one more time, let's just start from the half guard. With a body lock and his hand trapped, I'm in this stable half guard passing position. I center up my spine with his, extend my right leg back. Because I have inside ankle exposure, I can push his ankle down, which pushes his knee down. Now I can pummel my left foot inside, like so. Sometimes you can't get the toes in, guys. See how my toes are like resting on top of his shin? That's all I can get. I'm gonna work with that, okay? But I usually find with some finagling, I can get the toes inside. Okay, so we're here. Now, the first option is go on the base of my foot, extend, and then turn my knee towards the far wall, okay, to get my whole foot on the floor. I walk my leg up, I open up his legs. This is very, very stable, guys. My hips are never really coming up and off the floor, so it's easier to hold him down the whole time. So if you can get this one, do this one. Now I pull my right leg over my left leg, and both flop out, and I'm out. But if he's really, really strong, and you absolutely cannot get that, you start in the same way. The base of my right foot goes on the floor, but now my knee's gonna come off, and I'll try to hold as tight as you can. I'm just gonna walk my knee out very, very slowly. You go here, my hips come down, guys, and now I pummel my right foot to the outside, and I complete the guard pass. Okay, so we're fighting our way into a half guard through a body lock, and then from there, we are centering up our spine, pummeling our foot to the inside position, and making a choice based on whether we can open up his legs. Okay, make sense, guys? Yes? All right, let's give it a shot. 1, 2, 3. Some points about the last technique. This is all we're doing tonight. I mean, this is, I think, enough for one night, right? Like, yeah. So we're just gonna clarify some of these points so you understand, like, I just wanna make sure you guys understand some of the things I've said. So lie flat on your back here. So we're using one method to get into 2 different types of passes dependent upon whether we're capable of opening his legs or not, right? So sometimes if he's got like really strong legs, you can't open up the legs. Sometimes you just can't do that, right? With the first pass, right? So if I don't have the body lock, So just turn this way for me. So if I, keep going, yeah. So if I don't, just pretend I have the Bodylock so you guys, it's easier to see, right? What I'm doing is I'm getting that left leg hook, right? And then I'm stepping this right leg up as far to his hip as I can. That makes a wider space, so it's harder for him to lock his legs. Like here, right, he can lock his legs really easily, right? Sometimes I'm able to walk my leg up, and there's different ways to do this. Like the main way I like to do this actually is treat your foot as if it's 2 feet. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, right, like this. Then I can lean forward and sometimes pop the legs open. Okay, if I can do that, I never raise my hips a lot, so I'm more stable, right? So this is, I think, should be your preferred method if you can get it, because it's more stable, right? And what you're doing here is, let's just turn this way again. If you can succeed in opening up his legs here, it's the ankle that's first leaving his legs. I mean, ultimately, to pass his guard, right, I have to get both the ankle and the knee of my legs actually, outside of his guard, right? Makes sense? Yeah, so this is an ankle first method of passing the half guard, okay? Alternatively, he's really, really strong and I just can't get that, okay? I'm still gonna get that left leg butterfly hook inside, but this time, I'm not really opening up his legs. I'm just taking my legs outside, I should say through his legs, okay? So let's say you're gonna find these guys where you're just like, Jesus, I can't open this guy's legs up. He's so strong, right? So instead, I just take my knee out. I never open up his legs. I just go through them, okay? Does that make sense, guys? Yeah? Okay. All right, so yeah, that's basically it. Hope it made sense, and thanks for coming back.